I'm Kevin Chill Hurd, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. Everybody knows I represent the Lee Harvard area, stand up Lee Harvard. I'm a father of two children, and I believe and am empowered through my information and research to make the best choice that I can possibly make for myself and my kids to get vaccinated, to protect ourselves from this virus.
My name is Clarence Johnson. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, the Mount Pleasant area. I'm pro-choice when it comes to the vaccination, but me personally, I do not plan on taking it, just based on my personal belief system. I believe to each his own, and you have to make the decision that is best for yourself. I'm a father of 11.
Do I feel that things are serious? Yeah, I think they are serious. I think they've been serious. It's a pandemic. It's worldwide. I feel the effects of it. I have friends that I've lost to this virus, and it's changed the way that we live and the things that we need to know how to survive, how to be social, how to love each other. It's changed the way that we live.
To be honest, it's hard to say something that's serious with a 98 survival rate. It seems like it's more propaganda than anything, because there's so many different stories that you hear from people who are affected by those who die, but then there's so many who are just getting sick and aren't actually dying. Just looking at it comparatively, there's more people who die from the flu in a year than have died from COVID-19 in the last year. So I can't take it seriously.
I'd really like, the data that I've seen is a little different, especially flu deaths compared to COVID deaths. We're probably at like 500,000 COVID deaths. I was kind of up on it from the very beginning. When I found out, it's a pandemic, so everybody heard about it worldwide. I went to people that I trust, my doctors. I reached out to the immunologists. I need to reach out to people studying viruses, biology, anybody that I can try to. I'm looking to find what's in the vaccine because now I gotta make a decision for my family. And so I went above and beyond to find out, about this virus, at least what I could, and about the vaccine.
The primary basis for me making that decision is history. Throughout American history, the people who are seen as a minority in the country are often experimented on, or when something quote unquote new, because coronavirus is actually not new. When something new happens, they experiment on that group of people to figure out how to go around it. One thing that comes to mind would be the incident in Tuskegee. That within itself is something that bothers me, because that's not really that long ago in actuality. And if the same government was able to do something like that, how could they not do it now at a wider scale? Tuskegee was, if I have the right event, that had something to do with syphilis. And it was people who were brought to a clinic who were told that whether it was an experimental drug or it was something they would take that would help them, when in actuality they knew what they were injecting them with.
Okay, this is an important step in what's happening now, in my opinion, and that's our historical relationship with things that the government has done, it's specifically in the medical service. I think that we get the wrong message from what happened in Tuskegee, and I think it affects our decision making. First of all, the study itself is called the Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis in Negro Males. So right there, the name of the study tells you that what happened is they didn't treat us. They had a cure at the time, which was penicillin, and they withheld it. What those brothers needed in Tuskegee was a shot. They did not give us a shot. But we have a collective false memory as Black people to think they injected us with syphilis. But what they did do was horrible. It was tragic. to let somebody have a disease, not tell them that they have it, and then not only not treat them when a treatment is available, but to watch them spread it, get sicker and sicker and die. And this went on from 1932 to 1972. And I'm famous now for saying we're Tuskegeeing ourselves, because instead of the government withholding that treatment from us, we're now withholding the treatment from ourselves. Okay, he also brought up measles, mumps, rubella, MMR.
No, that's something that's a vaccination that you're required to take before a certain age. I have small children, so there's certain things that they have to take in order to attend school, and that's one of those things they have to take before they even enter the first grade.
That's not just your kids, that's everybody.
That's
That's us as well. Mm-hmm. But that's an instance where that was a successful vaccine. I mean, you might have alluded to, when you were talking about that, I got the understanding that you thought that there were not successful vaccines.
No, it's not that they weren't successful. This is the process that they had to go through to actually be able to create these vaccines, the time that it took, the research that it took to create the vaccines for something they were already studying previously. Right. So now we have something that they have the history on. Let's say that it's actually the 19th.
But you know that they came up with that vaccine like in the 50s? Mm-hmm. Okay, this is 2021. You can't expect the science to stay at the same level that it was. What I want to say is this vaccine that we're working on now is better than those vaccines back then. I don't know if you remember, the anti-vaxxers have had a problem with the MMR vaccines because they said they had part of the virus in them, or they had mercury in them. These current vaccines, they have no form, dead, weakened, no form of the virus in it. This is a whole new science. This is a science that's going to change the game for the better of us, not to the detriment of us. The question is, the way that we know it, it plays itself out. The same thing with all the other vaccines that we've had. The people could have said that about the MMR vaccine. Measles was worldwide. Polio was crippling children all over this country. We've almost eradicated that with our scientific progress. We stand on the shoulders of our successes. You know, it's been so long ago that we cured measles and mumps and polio. We forget how much beneficial vaccines are. We can afford to say we don't want to take vaccines because we have benefited from vaccines. So the process of creating vaccines, the science of it has progressed. When you talked about the test, the trials, they went through all three of the clinical trials, all three levels for this vaccine. They didn't shortcut it. The success of it, we got to like 95 efficacy rate on the first two that came out, the Moderna and the Pfizer. This is not the first coronavirus. And that's part of the answer why it didn't take them as long. They were already familiar with the coronavirus, SARS, MERS. Those are various viruses, coronavirus because of the crown on the virus. But this specific one, which they named COVID-19, is a different variant of coronavirus. But you're right, because they already were familiar with coronaviruses and they had already been working in general on vaccines for different viruses, when this specific one came around, it's scientists all over the world, black ones, white ones, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Swiss, waiting for the code. All we need is the molecular code for this virus, and we're ready to start working on a vaccine right now. So one, they already were working on the process, especially the mRNA. They were already working on that technology. Two, coronaviruses in general weren't foreign to them. And three, man, we got some of the coldest scientists worldwide working on vaccines. We know more about this vaccine than we've ever known about any vaccine.
The government is supposed to help us be protected from COVID-19. Why would they not educate us on the right mask to wear? That's to me, that's a valid question. If
it is.
COVID-19 is something that nobody really knows about, supposedly, and it's something that's being researched on, and you're supposed to give us the information. Once you go through the research, how's the information you're giving us not even valid from week to week? Like, so these are the same people that are giving you this information that you're depending on to kind of make your point of view, as well as what you're seeing and the deaths you're seeing. So if half of what you're getting is not reliable, and the other half you're getting is just by visual experience, how do you even decide which one to trust?
Okay, first of all, again, I'm not listening to the politicians. I'm not listening to the government. I'm listening to the doctors, to the biologists, to immunologists, to the virologists. I'm listening to the experts that have to study this, not the politicians. They're gonna tell you anything. I think history tells us that we don't always have to go by that. But one thing I want to tell you, you say when things change, they tell you one thing this week and another thing next week. That's how science works. That given more information, the information can change. It's called the novel virus because it's new. You're never going to get 100% of the information off the rip from something brand new. So again, that's how science works. That's why they follow the data. That's why they continue to study. If they find out that this works better later on, I feel better that if they find out something is incorrect, I feel better that the process is self-corrective. Yeah, that they can tell you, you know what, we got that wrong. I'd rather for them to tell me that they got it wrong than to keep it wrong and not tell me.
So you're technically saying that the medical experts aren't experts, because if it's something that's new, they've had no previous time to study, so all the information they're learning is not expert opinion, it's just a good guess.
It's not an opinion, it's what the data says. It's not, science isn't opinion driven. Medicine isn't opinion driven. You find out more information as it goes by and you adjust with the best information that you can get.
The coronavirus has a 97% survival rate. So by it being a 97% survival rate, most people that are being affected are those who are in old age or have a predisposed to some other disease or some kind of illness, are the people who've been dying from it. And just sticking to coronavirus, what is so serious about something that 97% of the Americans survive from, that all the attention from the scientific community is only on this subject and no other viral compound has been around now? Everything is just focused on COVID-19.
First of all, my answer to that is, when you say a 90, and we can check on that, but when we say 97% survival rate, you're talking about mortality. You're talking about that other 3% die. Mm-hmm. Okay, if that's your metric on surviving it, then that's a different discussion. Because people who have contracted COVID who don't die, mm-hmm. they have respiratory problems. They have what they call COVID brain. They have loss of taste and smell. They have nervous conditions, in their nervous system. Is so many other things that can happen to you because of this virus other than you die. That's something else to think about. But even if 3% of the millions of people that live in this country is not like 500,000 people dead. Mm-hmm. And it's not over. We now have different variants.
All right, the racial climate that's existed for the last year or so is the tension of it is almost equivalent to the late 70s, early 80s. And a lot of that is just to do with social media, because before it's something that you could not see. So now it's something that's seen, it's broadcasted, it's noticeable. That is what made me kind of eerie about the government's intention with the vaccine, because when Corona-19 first came out, they were describing the people who would be susceptible, and none of those were African Americans. After a year, and after the vaccines come out, they now say that African Americans are the most susceptible to the disease. And I just found it kind of weird that after a year, after the vaccines, after so much explanation, after so much misinformation, now you're telling me that it's the African Americans who really need to take it. Like, as soon as the vaccine came out, the African Americans got to take it because, it's affecting y'all the most. But I've not seen that in any representation, in any level of media. So, like, with the racial climate being what it is, how Corona has just kind of overshadowed everything that's been going on in this situation, it gives you a chance to ignore the impropriety that's going on in the news, and a lot of those racial situations is that's what makes me kind of leery about it. It's just the tension that has been going on in the background before they even came with the vaccine. And once you create these vaccines from different companies, you then change who you say is susceptible to this disease. Like it just made me leery about it, and it's just because of that. Like, so it's not that vaccines are a new thing, that this vaccination is a new process. It does bother me that they came up with it so fast, but that's the other thing in the back of my mind.
Another thing that helps me, because a lot of times when we use the word they, that in the African American community, we have become they. We are now scientists. We are now immunologists. We're now virologists. We are the doctors. Dr. Kizmekia Corbett, sister from North Carolina, led the scientific team on the mRNA vaccine that became Moderna. You know, all up and down the process, Black people have been involved now. And that may not have been something that happened in prior times. My personal primary care doctors are Black people. My current doctor, the doctor I had before that. And I do trust my doctors.
For the last couple of months, they've been trying to influence.
Who?
And it's not just the government, it's also mainstream media. That's been the message they've been putting out for the last couple of months by continuing to say that Black people are now the most affected by the virus, when for 6 months previous to that, those weren't the people who were most susceptible to the disease. Like, by them giving me one set of information, then all of a sudden they come out, they're like, nah, we need the Black people to take it. So, Black people are most affected by it now. It's just the way they're bringing information to me and how they're presenting.
This is what I don't want to happen. I don't want racism to cause us to make a detrimental decision on our health. I don't want us to base that white people or the government have been doing us dirty to make us make a wrong decision about our health. Yes, I'm agreeing with all of that. But is that how we make our decision on our health? If we need to research, we need to be comfortable. If you got to ask somebody, but the answer can't be, you know what, I'm not going to take this life-saving shot because of racism.
I have no plans to be vaccinated. I feel like it should be a choice of individuals. I don't think it should be something you should be forced to do or forced to have to be licensed or any condition of what's going on in your regular day-to-day. But I do think it's an important discussion to be had, no matter if you feel you should take it or not, because it's different levels of family involved in it. But I do also still believe it should be your own personal choice. But I don't know, I welcome any conversation about it, and I do think that's something that has to be discussed more in person with people, because it's something that's not being talked about.
The conversation has to be had, especially in our community, especially in the Black community. Listen to this brother and hearing his concerns are concerns that I hear all the time. I just don't want fear and distrust to cause us to do ourselves harm on something that is preventable. I think we have to get better in messaging. I think that conversations like this are necessary, whether it obviously isn't changing this brother's mind, but it may provide some information that people can go back and look up. Hopefully I've brought up some things, and hopefully he's brought up some things that we can do research on. And at the end of the day, that's what we have to protect ourselves. But you can only defeat bad science with good science. You can only defeat bad information with proper information. It benefits all of us. It benefits our families. It benefits, our sons and daughters, our children, our mothers, our grandmothers. We all want the same thing.